I'm not supposed to have anything that's would. We're over.
Yeah, and if you got a family and the building runs all through and
Yeah. So I think we gotta vote yes on that.
I would like to call to order the Tuesday, February 18th, 2025 meeting of the Danville City Council. Madam Clerk, roll call to establish a quorum, please.
Mayor Ricky Williams Jr.,
Present.
Alderman Ed Butler, Heidi Wilson, Carolyn Wands,
Here.
James Bouchard,
Present.
Mike O'Kane, Bob Iverson,
Here.
Mike Poore,
Present.
Rick Streebing,
Here.
Sherry Pickering,
Here.
Eve Ludwig,
Present.
Tricia Teague,
Present.
Robert Williams,
Present.
Darren York,
Here.
John Cooper,
Here.
12 present.
12 present. We do have a quorum. At this time, we will have the invocation led by Alderman Butler, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Chairman Poore. Please rise.
Shall we pray? Oh, most gracious Heavenly Father, as we come to you as humble as we know how, seeking to praise your holy name, we thank you, my Father, for allowing us to lie down last night. We rose up this morning with our minds stayed on you, that you allow us to rise up this morning to see another day that we've never seen before. But Father, you've been so good to us. You've been better to us than we've been to ourselves, and we give you all the glory and give you all the praise. So, Father God, as I pray for this city council. I pray for the mayor of the city. And Father, I pray for all of those that make up this city as a whole. Continue to bless us and keep us in the hearts of your arm. Because, Father, we pray that you will touch our hearts and touch our minds. That as we take care of business at hand, that we will make the decision, Father, that you see fit that's going to help out this city. So be with us throughout eternity, and we pray for the ones that are absent on this council tonight. But as we make the decision tonight, we pray, Heavenly Father, that it will help us all within this city to move it forward, because, Father, we need you more now than we ever need you before. There's so much going on in and around this nation, and, Father, it seems like it's just a trickle-down effect. But, Father, just keep us humble until you will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that prayer, Mr. Butler. We so appreciate you. At this time, you have the minutes before you of February 4th. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. The minutes have been approved. We also have before you an agenda for this evening. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I got a question on this one.
It's been moved, and then we can have discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on the agenda?
Yeah, I would like to remove items 8A and 11C, move that to the date of March 4th due to a couple of circumstances that happened. So if we can do that.
A second.
To 3, 4. I'm sorry, can you say which ones again, Alderman?
8A, 11C,
8A and 11C.
move it to March 4th. That fits the timeline for the zoning committee, so we should be
That's
all
within the
right.
45 days, Logan?
Yeah, that fits state statute and local zoning code. It's 45 days from the public hearing to city council consideration.
Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Can you say why?
Yeah.
Why are we moving it?
Well, personally, if I'm going to go this direction on this, we don't have a full council here, and you're looking at 8 votes, and this could be a pretty close vote. And I'd rather have a full 14-member council before we do this.
Okay.
And we just, the 8 votes is could be an issue.
Yes, Alderwoman Wands.
Excuse me. It's only 20% of the time that we have a full council. I think we need to move on with this.
Any further discussion or debate? This is on the, yes, Mr. Butler.
And then I can't think as well. I've read a lot of it, and I'm trying to get a better understanding. And there is some verbiage in there that that I don't, care for as well. And I kind of think we need, as a whole, to really look at the ordinance before we vote.
Mr. Butler, will you please lower your mic just a little bit to be sure we can hear you? There you go. Thank you. Just want to make sure everybody hears what you have to say.
Actually, we could probably push this through our committee and then go to the full council. I mean, give our committee a shot at talking about it too. I mean,
Well, either way, I mean, if it would still go to the council on the 4th, that's the amendment that you've
Okay.
made, so. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? This is the amendment only. If you vote yes, then you are voting to postpone a vote on items 8A and 11C until March 4th. To vote no means you want to vote on them this evening. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Williams,
I would sustain at this point with that.
Abstention.
Alderman York,
Yes.
Cooper,
yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Wilson, Wands,
No.
Bouchard,
Yes.
O'Kane, Iverson,
No.
Poor,
Yes.
Strebing,
Yes.
Pickering,
No.
Ludwig,
No.
Teague,
Yes.
7 yes and 1 abstention.
7 yes, the motion failed, the amendment fails. We are now back to the original item, which is the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Excuse me, Mayor.
I'm sorry, there was already a motion made. Any further discussion on the agenda?
I just wanted to remind you about item 8B. Should be an ordinance instead of a resolution.
Oh, yes, thank you. I apologize. Just as a matter of a typographical error, items 8A and B should say ordinance instead of resolution. I apologize for that.
So 7 votes can carry that?
An abstention counts as a yes, doesn't it?
I believe it does. At least that's what it does in planning and zoning. That's what happened when we voted on, I can't remember what it was, but in planning and zoning, the abstention was a yes.
I'm not certain, Corporation Counsel, on if someone abstains from the vote, does that count as a yes or
Goes with majority.
does it go with a majority or?
I am not certain. Haven't had this come up.
Well, I remember when we were discussing planning and zoning, because there was planning and zoning for the solar that is on North Vermilion. I clearly remember this because one of the commissioners abstained, but it was counted as a yes, because I asked that particular commissioner why they voted for it. And because that person actually came as a commenter on that particular item. And if I need to say names for recollection, the commissioner at the time, the commissioner was Tammy, what is her? Wilson, thank you. I was thinking Reed because that's her maiden name. Tammy Wilson. And she came and spoke against the particular zoning because she was a neighbor of the zoning. And then I asked her, well, why did you speak against it when you voted yes? Because that is what our documents stated. And what we were told at that time in that meeting, which was not that long ago, was that an abstention counts as a yes. So if an abstention counts as a yes for Planning and Zoning Commission, then an abstention should count as a yes in City Council, if that is the letter of the law. Now, if that's not the letter of the law, then there must be different rules for planning and zoning than there are for city council. But that was what happened in that particular discussion and that particular issue. And what she told me was I did not vote. She said I abstained, and I understand why she abstained because she's a neighbor. But when we had a discussion about it, what was said that night, I believe, from the mayor and then from Logan, who in planning and zoning was that an abstention is a yes.
So our council rules state that we, in the absence of a specific rule, we will follow Robert's rules. According to Robert Rules of Orders, the phrase abstention votes is an oxymoron, an abstention being a refusal to vote. In the usual situation where the rules require either a majority vote or a 2/3 vote, abstentions have absolutely no effect on the outcome of the vote, since what is required is either a majority or 2/3 of the votes cast. On the other hand, if the rules explicitly require a majority or 2/3 of the members present, or a majority or 2/3 of the entire membership, an abstention will have the same effect as a no vote. Even in such a case, however, an abstention is not a vote and is not counted as a vote.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick bit of research. There is an Illinois Supreme Court ruling, and it states that when an affirmative vote of the members is required, any abstention or pass vote is counted as a no vote.
No.
So what I would state to you is we have to pass the agenda at that time. That comes up, someone could vote to table, could make a motion to table it or anything else, and we could vote on it at that time. There are other ways to have it not voted on this evening.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is the 8 votes required to pass an ordinance, or because Robert's rules is majority, as you just said, which would have been 7-5, because there's 12 of us present. So my question is the 8 votes as it relates to pass ordinances and laws for the city of Danville, or is it 8 votes for everything that we do? Because not that long ago, we said it was majority until Alderman O'Kane, who's not present, said, no, we needed to have 8 to pass things. And the law that was cited for that was about passages of ordinances, not about specifically as it relates to motions. So my question is, as the Supreme Court case that you just read and the Roberts rules, because you just said majority in Roberts rules, and then you talked about abstentions being no's, which understand if that's Roberts rules. However, the majority is 7-5 on this. We weren't tied, so it's 7-5. My question is, the case that you read, is that applicable to any motion or applicable to law and ordinances?
It says very expressly here, if the rules explicitly require a majority or a majority, not 8, a majority, or 2/3 of the members present, or a majority or 2/3 of the entire membership, an abstention will have the same effect as a no vote. Even in such a case, however, an abstention is not a vote and is not counted as a vote.
But there was 7 yes, correct, yes. Clerk? So that's still 7-5 or 7-4 in this case.
Already carried.
So the majority carried. It's 7-4. It didn't fail. It's 7-4.
Right.
It actually did fail because our ordinances, as we haggled this out expressly, and you all explicitly said, you included, Vice Mayor, that it takes 8 votes to pass anything in this council.
This is not a passage of an ordinance.
It doesn't refer to an ordinance. It says for the city council to pass anything. So we can have the corporation council pull up the city council rules so that we can look again. But for now, we're going to proceed as if it failed because it did fail. Now we'll have a vote on the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. All right. I do not have any proclamations for you this evening, and there are no board or committee or personnel appointments. Are there any reports of boards, agencies, or commissions? Seeing none, items of information. I'm very excited that we have with us this evening Katie Osterber, who I believe is the new president of Keep Vermilion County Beautiful, of which we are a member. They are a huge support to us. Katie, we're glad to have you.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. My name is Katie, and I am the new president of Keep Vermilion County Beautiful. But I have been a volunteer with Keep Vermilion County Beautiful for the past 15 years. It is an organization that I really love to be a part of. I work for Peer Court, and my Peer Court kids are big volunteers throughout the summer during the litter pickups, through our partnership with Douglas Discovery Garden, the community garden out at Douglas Park, that the city also partners with them for. And it's a really good organization. So tonight I am here to thank you for being a member of our organization. We can't do it without community support. And that is one of the biggest things that we're looking to increase this year as we move forward. So I want to talk just for a few moments about some of our upcoming events. I'd like to first ask you to follow our Facebook page so that you know about our upcoming events. We post our events, our things that we're doing, our numbers for litter pickup. So when we do a litter pickup, we always post there. But we are having, I think in March 8th, we are doing an Adopt-A-Spot event at Mad Goat South. We're going to partner with them and have some coffee and delicious donuts. We are asking for our current Adopt-A-Spot members to come and so we can thank them, and new people interested in adopting a spot within your own neighborhood to come and be sign up and just take your little area, and it can be wherever you want. We will have little starter kits there to get you started doing your litter pickups, and then all you have to do is pick up your area once or twice a month whenever you feel it's needed, and send your litter data to Steve Lane, who is our Adopt-A-Spot coordinator. He collects all of our data to send to the national organization. So we are doing that. We have 2 litter pickups already scheduled. Keep your fingers crossed that like the weather breaks before March 15th. We do the DAC area right before the basketball tournament, the I'm going to get the acronym wrong. I'm so okay. Thank you, Ricky. So we are going to clean up that area right before that tournament starts to welcome people into Danville. And then we are partnering with Sunrise Rotary to do Newell, Walmart, the parking lot area at the end of April. And so every month we will have at least 1, hopefully 2 litter pickups throughout Vermilion County that we participate in. Those are posted on our Facebook page, and we invite anybody who wants to come. And then on May 3rd, we are doing the Great American Cleanup for Vermilion County. Now, last year, we kind of redid what we're doing. We partnered with the city. We did some planting throughout. That's the fun part, right? The planting. Planting beautiful flowers. Like, that's what everybody likes to do. We did the welcome signs last year for the Great American Cleanup. But then we also chose 4 different locations throughout our city, and we had Mr. Cooper, you were there with us last year. We picked up heading into Holiday Hills, and so we picked 4 different locations. Volunteers meet us, and we clean up the area. So keep a lookout for things that we're doing. I know the city is a member. We are very thankful for that, but if anybody would like to individually become a member, I am going to set some information by that table. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anybody, even our audience, can pick it out before you leave. And the one thing that comes with the membership, and the city should take this into account, is with a membership, you are eligible for one of our beautification grants that we will do this spring. So you, if you are a member, even a personal, like an individual member for $50, you can apply to, we have done landscaping around welcome signs to town, different building things, benches for different areas. So planting trees. Last year we were able to fund an entire downtown tree planting for one of our city or county villages. So keep that in mind if you'd like to participate that way. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Thanks, Katie. We appreciate you. I just want you guys to know this lady is out there in this, whether it's nice or sub-zero weather, with me every time we clean up for the tournament. So
you really like the nice ones.
Yes,
the sub-zero really got us.
it's really, yeah, it's been bad a couple of times. Thanks so much, Katie, for everything you guys do for Danville.
Thank you for having us today.
Absolutely. The other thing I want to remind everyone about is that we have coming up rapidly our first Friday, which is Danville's Got Talent. That is one of the best events that we have here in the city of Danville. That'll be at the Fisher Theater. Tickets are on sale now. And this year we're going to switch it up a little bit. We had so many talented people apply and audition that we're going to have a youth division and an adult division. So the youth division will be before intermission and the adult division will be afterwards. So really excited. We have some amazing talent in our community, so please come out and support them. I think you'll enjoy it. You'll have a great time. The last thing that Mr. Parker, do you have an update for us by chance on any thoughts on the rules, or would you?
Our local rules indicate when there's a vote on all resolutions, ordinances, or motions that shall be passed by the affirmative. It requires a vote of no less than 8 council members. regarding abstention, pass, or a present vote or non-vote, unless otherwise provided for by statute, the final expression of any council member when a vote is called for of abstain, pass, or present, or failure to vote when physically present shall not be construed as a vote or acquiescence with either side of the vote taken.
Okay.
Can you cite section, please?
Yes. This is in section 7E, voting. And it is paragraph.
Is that in the code of in our online code?
Is it in chapter 39, Leon?
Yeah, what chapter is that in? Because I'm in 31. I was looking there, but I didn't see anything there.
Not all of the organizational rules are in chapter 39.
This is at our city council handbook. And, don't know that this.
Vice Mayor, we can provide that to you.
Yeah, I'll be happy to get that.
We'll email that to you.
Yeah, I don't see a section, but it is paragraphs. What I just alluded to is paragraphs 3 and 9.
Thank you, Corporation Counsel.
So just for the sake of not just myself, but everyone here. So it is not in the information that's on the code library web. It's not on the website.
No, the organizational rules, rules in their entirety are not on in the full code of ordinance, our organizational rules.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing that I wanted to remind everyone about is that if we're able to leave, and depending upon what time we get out of here, DACC has their Black History program tonight. I'm going to try to get over there, even if it's just to catch the end of it, to support our young people. So if you have time, it starts at 7, and we'd love to see you over there.
Where's this at?
At DACC in the Bremer Theater, Bremer Auditorium. Yes, sir. There's been quite a bit of discussion about a particular case regarding a landlord and tenant, and there's been all kinds of information and things said about that. So I wanted to ask our Corporation Counsel to provide us with kind of a timeline update so that people can better understand how that transpired. So Corporation Counsel, I'll turn it over to you.
As requested, I did provide a timeline for a recent landlord-tenant issue that's been the topic of several conversations. All of these dates are in 2024. With regard to this particular case, on July 17th, a 30-day notice to vacate and non-renewal of the lease was mailed to this particular tenant. And on 7/22, a 30-day notice was hand-delivered to this tenant. This required the tenant to vacate the property and gave her several months to do so. On July 30th, the tenant filed a complaint with the city. I would note this is 8 days after the tenant was hand-delivered the 30-day notice to vacate and non-renewal of her lease. 1 day later, on August 1st, the legal department opened up a case, and concerning this tenant's complaint, our city inspector, actually more than one city inspector, addressed the complaint with any needed repairs with the property managers. The repairs were made, and the case was later closed on December 6th. The inspector made a specific note that there were some damages to the property after the repairs were made. The property manager took photos and provided the legal department, our inspectors, with copies of the damages that they allege were caused by the tenant. The lease the tenant had entered into allows for the owner-landlord to seek from the tenant reimbursement for the damages. When the tenant refused to pay on September 17th, a 10-day notice was prepared and on September 27th served on this tenant. A day after the 10-day notice was prepared on September 18th and sent to the tenant, an alderman sent to the city administrator an email requesting the administrator, quote, help her avoid eviction, end quote. On that same date, September 18th, the tenant filed a complaint with the city administrator. Again, this was one day after the 10-day notice was sent to this tenant. The complaint alleged the tenant was being charged by the landlord for code enforcement issues. On September 19th, the city administrator sent an email to the property manager requesting they respond to the complaint. The property manager alleges they requested a copy of the complaint from the city administrator but did not receive it. On September 20th, the property manager responded to the city's administrator asking if the department also accepts property management complaints regarding tenants. On September 26th, it appears the city administrator responded by resending the September 19th email and added to that the landlord could be subject to Chapter 163 violations. On September 26th, the property managers responded by advising the city's administrator the matter would be resolved in court. On October 1st, an eviction complaint was filed by the property manager in Vermilion County Circuit Court, case number 24 EV 602. On October 7th, the tenant appeared in Circuit Court and denied the complaint, requested a bench trial before a judge, which was set for October 11th. On October 10th, emails between the city's administrator and an alderman seeking to secure the tenant an attorney and trying to, quote, buy her a little more time, end quote. On October 11th, the case was called for a hearing in Circuit Court. The tenant and property manager owner reached an agreement where the tenant would pay her November rent on time and vacate the property by December 1st. And if the tenant complied, the case would be dismissed and the file sealed. If the tenant failed to comply, the owner was granted the ability to seek immediate possession of the premises. During a public service meeting, an alderman advised the members of this council committee the tenant had been evicted and that it was a retaliation case, stating the city administrator agreed with that. On November 6th, the tenant failed to comply with the agreement she entered into with the landlord, and an order for the immediate possession was granted to the landlord by a judge in the Vermilion County Circuit Court. At a full council meeting on November 19th, the administrator, referring to the same case, stated it was a retaliation case. This was not a retaliation case. On 12/17, a local landlord appeared at our committee meeting, spoke during public comments, and described this case, and in doing so, described the tenant as his friend, stating his friend had been totally discriminated against and it was retaliation. The landlord further stated that if there was ever a case of landlord committing retaliation against a tenant, it was this case. This local landlord stated he took his friend, this tenant, to the city attorney, which is myself, and his friend couldn't get an audience with the city attorney. This is misleading. I met with this tenant and her landlord friend at the legal department at City Hall and heard her complaint and allegations with 2 other city employees in the legal department present. The legal department looked into this matter and found there was much more to this case than what the tenant and her landlord friend had advised. We met in my office on October 11th of 2024. That is the same day this tenant had her bench trial, and this tenant went immediately from her bench trial, where she entered into an agreement with her landlord, and came to City Hall, met with me, complaining of retaliation. Now, what I did in the legal department, I spoke to our inspectors. I reviewed our inspector's file. I spoke to the tenant. I spoke to the landlord property manager. I reviewed the documents they presented, including the lease entered into with the landlord and tenant. I reviewed our city administrator's file. I reviewed the Vermilion County Circuit Court history and file, and the agreement the tenant and landlord entered into. I reviewed the pictures of the damages that was caused to the landlord's property, allegedly by the tenant. I looked at the timing of when the notices were filed and the eviction notices, and noted they were filed before the tenant made her complaint. I looked at what the tenant was being billed for by the landlord, and it was not for code violations, but for damages they alleged to have been caused by the tenant. I would again point out this particular tenant had her day in court where she could have contested the eviction and the damages alleged. She could have called any witness she wanted, including her friend, the landlord, who was present with her. She could have raised all legal defenses available to her. Instead, she chose to agree to leave the property and timely pay her rent until she vacated. She then left the courthouse, came to City Hall, and made allegations of retaliation. This is how an unbiased investigation should be conducted, and it was by the legal department. There's no agenda. There was just gathering facts, being fair to all parties. Our city legal system, which included the inspectors and our existing ordinance, worked. The legal process, which was afforded to the landlord and the tenant in the circuit court, worked for all parties. That's all I have.
Thank you, Corporation Counsel.
Question.
Yes.
What does that have to do about us rewriting this ordinance to protect the tenant? And FYI, I'm the alderman he's talking about. I mean, you can go ahead and announce it. I don't care. But, you know, what she had was a valid complaint. We had it sent to Sandy, and Sandy thought it was a valid complaint also. We go in to see what the ordinance is written up, and tenant absolutely had no protection in filing anything with the city. And that's my goal, or I think council's goal too, is to protect the tenant from any retaliation from the landlord. And it wasn't written in that ordinance that we had.
So, Mr. Cooper, I just provided you with facts and an accurate timeline, and after a thorough investigation, this was clearly not a retaliation case, and our ordinance, as it exists right now, worked, and what it has to do with our Chapter 163 ordinance, we've tried to modify that and make it even better. We have a proposal that the committee that worked on that Chapter 163 ordinance has presented to the council, and it's been tabled since that time. So whenever the council's ready, we can present that again for your consideration.
That's going to be on the agenda next week then, in our Public Services Committee then, right?
Yes, it will be.
But I think that's a goal of mine, at least, is for tenant protection. And I don't think it was in that first writing. And, you know, you can say what you want. I just, I think the city needs to protect the tenant. And I don't know if it was in that ordinance that we wrote.
Well-
And Sandy made some recommendations in that, and I think those should be implemented, but I mean, that's something we can talk about next week.
The ordinance as it exists right now worked for this tenant. This tenant had a very fair process with our city inspectors, had a very fair process in circuit court. And the ordinance that's been presented to this council for your consideration makes it even stronger. But even with the existing ordinance, Chapter 163, it worked very well for this tenant.
Vice Mayor.
I personally find it a tad bit. Well, actually, let me back up. When we were having conversations about the ordinance change, we talked about a number of cases. And we talked about them from the perspective of not necessarily knowing all of the details and without naming individuals involved. A lot of times it was just we talked about hypotheticals and then said, okay, well, in this particular case, this is what would have happened, so that people could wrap their minds around, okay, what would happen in this instance with this ordinance change, and how would it affect the tenant, and how would it affect the landlord, and how could we be fair? But we talked about a number of cases. And I know that because there was a particular complaint that I recommended that the tenant come and talk to the human relations administrator about. And that case also came up in conversation. Now, for whatever reason, and I do not know why, the landlords or the property management individuals in this particular case that is coming up decided to come to council. Prior to them coming, I had no idea who the parties were. All I knew was there was a tenant that had an issue. They reached out to their alderman. I didn't know a lot of details about it, but I knew enough that when it came up, I knew which one we were talking about. I knew when we were having the conversations and I would say, oh, Administrator Finch, the case I referred to you, because I remember saying that, and the person who I referred was a male and not a female, so I know it wasn't that case. Or I would say, Administrator Finch, the case that Alderman Cooper referred to you, and we would know which case we were talking about, but we never talked about details. I particularly find it distasteful that we are talking through these details in this manner, because that should be a private matter between those citizens. And the only reason it became public is because the landlords decided to come here on their own. It's not because we called them out or we're talking about them. We were talking about cases in hypothetical. We were using specific cases, multiple specific cases, as examples in our discussion. So this whole airing of all of the facts and details, I'm not sure what it has to do with the ordinance, because the only reason those cases came up is because those cases happened to be the ones that had recent complaints at the time we were talking about the ordinance change. I just want to say that this part of it is very, very distasteful, and I'm not exactly sure what the agenda or reasoning behind it is, but we should not be airing or pointing fingers in this way if it's not, unless it's to say, we broke the law, or we're making sure that we adhere to the law in a certain way and making sure that we're calling ourselves out or something like that. It strikes me as very distasteful.
Respectfully, this timeline was provided because there was quite a bit of misinformation, and it was a local landlord, more than a local landlord, that spoke at our committee during public comments that brought this up and made allegations that were not accurate and misleading to this council. So I believe it's necessary this council have accurate information moving forward.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, at this time, do we have any petitions, communications, or audience comments?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mayor. Has everyone had a chance to complete a yellow card who wishes to speak this evening? When I call your name, please come to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. All of our speakers have cards for this evening, wish to speak on the same subject, and that is the proposed cannabis consumption lounge. First, I have Amy Lee.
As a reminder, as Ms. Lee comes, just everyone, you will have 3 minutes. Because there are so many people that are passionate about this, I would ask that if someone before you kind of mentions the points that you'd hope to, just to say, for example, I concur with Ms. Lee, and then if there's anything new that you have to add, if you could then add it at that time, just for the sake of expedition.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Lee.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't start in your 3 minutes, so you get your full time.
Where's it being timed?
Right here.
Okay.
You'll hear a beeping when your time is concluded.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Amy Lee, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and COO of 7 Point. I just wanted to share a little bit of cannabis education. As I have been, meeting with many individuals around Danville, I'm learning that there are some gaps in education. So the first thing I just wanted to talk about is a system that we all have in our bodies called the endocannabinoid system. That's a system that we all have just as other systems that we have, like a digestive system, for example. Now this system, we naturally, I'm not talking about cannabis right now, I'm just talking about we naturally produce endocannabinoids in our brain and body. Our endocannabinoid system receives those endocannabinoids and signals a message. The messages are different, however, the goal is always homeostasis or balance. So this is a natural system that we have. And I bring this up because I know that we have in Illinois the opioid alternative pilot program, which it has been shown that there's a 25% decrease in deaths from opioids in states that do have legal cannabis. Cannabis has been shown to be an important strategy in harm reduction, especially from opioids and other lethal addictive drugs, including alcohol. And the reason why is because of this natural system that we have limits. So we might hear sometimes getting high from cannabis. However, that high is more like an elevation that occurs naturally in our bodies. It's nothing like crack cocaine or crystal meth or, it's nothing like that. I just want to clarify that. And it has been known as an exit strategy because nobody has ever died from cannabis. So think somebody's very addicted to opioids, a strategy they can use to help with the pain that they originally received a script for opioids from, but also the psychological and physical addiction and withdrawal. Cannabis can be used for opioid withdrawal and those symptoms around the clock because it is not lethal. It could be consumed, it is needed for the deep withdrawals. So that brings me to a study called Cannabis Concentrates Sharply Spike THC Levels, but do not lead to increased impairment. With alcohol, the more you consume, the more intoxicated you become. With cannabis, that is not the case, which leads to why it is such a harm reduction strategy. It is more like a bell curve is how it works. You don't continue to get higher and higher. So, and last point is cannabis increases empathy. Alcohol leads to more aggression. Cannabis does not.
Thank you, Ms. Lee.
Thank you.
Amy Hogan.
I am Amy Hogan. I'm with 7 Point. I am their Director of Security, and thank you guys for your time tonight. I just wanted to share some of our safety and security and preventative measures that will include keeping our lounge open past 10 p.m. and guests would never be allowed to bring in any alcohol or outside cannabis that has not been purchased from 7 Point immediately preceding the visit to our lounge. There will be no guns, weapons at any time allowed in our lounge or dispensary, and we would install a metal detector inside the entrance of the lounge to ensure additional safety. We are also participating in the Danville Police Camera Registration Program, and we believe the level of security is a lot higher than a liquor store or bar, and we have an armed guard on site at all times to provide our spaces safe and secure. We also have an electronic secure access for anyone entering and must be buzzed in to either the dispensary or the lounge. The only public area is our lobby, and if customers do not provide the correct form of identification or if they do not have a reservation for the lounge, they will not be allowed to enter. My security team and I will be doing additional training with the Danville Police Department regarding the following topics that I myself have already been trained in at the Illinois Police Academy, which is de-escalation, weapon retention, use of force option, trauma-informed responses, response of mental health crisis, and elevated risk assessment. When guests reserve a table at the lounge online, they will be required to sign off on the rules, terms, and conditions, including but not limited to, that you must be 21 or older of age to enter with a valid ID. You will have a 2-hour limit per reservation, which may be extended as necessary, and outside cannabis, beverages, and devices will not be permitted. They will also be checked in at the lounge at first arrival, and when the guests arrive, we envision the following procedures at this time. A sign at the front desk will indicate guests to check in for the lounge at first entry to the dispensary, and staff at check-in will request a dispensary agent positioned on the sales floor to greet the guest and then assist with their table in the lounge after making their purchase with the receipt stapled to their bag, showing that there was a purchase there and the lounge has a secure entrance, will be accessible by the dispensary agent. And at this moment, that's all I have for you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hogan.
Pedro Linares, I apologize if I mispronounced your last name.
Pedro.
Pedro.
Hi, how are you all doing? My name is Pedro Linares. I am a team lead at 7 Point Dispensary. I'm just going to take a few seconds of your time. I wanted to talk about the local support that we have for the Consumption Lounge. These are all signed petitions from local Danville residents ranging from all different wards. I wanted to go over a few letters of support we have, one being from Sam Patel, the owner of the local Quality Inn in Super 8, right next to our Consumption Lounge and dispensary. He has full support, thinking that it would be great to support his business alongside our business. Another person we have support from is the Golden Nugget themselves. They have written a letter in support of the Consumption Lounge being open, implying that it would be good revenue for them as well as us and the city of Danville. The last letter I wanted to go over was the Vermilion Advantage. They supported the Consumption Lounge being open as well. I just wanted to let you guys know about all those. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Linares.
Kendra Murray.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for your time. I am the GM at 7 Point. I just want to go over a few things. Our operation plan for the lounge includes standard operating procedures to support and promote a safe environment for all our customers. We plan to adopt this STAMP approach to consistently maintain a safe environment, including providing staff training, active monitoring, prevention, and preparation. We all take responsible vendor training once a year at our store. This is something we do by the state, state mandated dispensary agent training. It reviews over responsible cannabis use, physical effects of cannabis, and the onset of physiological effects, how to recognize signs of impairment and overconsumption, and appropriate responses in the event of overconsumption. Our lounge standard operating procedure training will include special checkout for those with reservations in the lounge, and checkout or at security desk outside the lounge. Safe serve food and alcohol certification and Bassett training. Although alcohol will not be permitted on our premises, the lounge hospitality staff will be required to have up-to-date Safe Serve certification from the National Restaurant Association. We also pledge to update our training program as best practices continue to evolve over time. Additionally, we will provide a visual tabletop tent menu for rideshare information and then the nearby hotels for walking distance. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mowry.
Brad Zerman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, everyone else. Thanks for letting us say a few words. I would like to reiterate the close similarity between a bar that serves alcohol and a lounge that people would smoke cannabis in. Danville offers 21 plus products to the public, which are state legal in Illinois, such as beer, wine, liquor, cannabis, gummies, oils, and pre-rolled joints. Many of us here consume 21 plus products at local establishments such as Applebee's, El Toro, Jocko's, Golden Nugget Casino Bar, and many other places. In fact, there's 16 active liquor licenses in Danville, all places where you can maybe show a 21 ID, sit down, order a beer, possibly with some decent food, and watch sports or talk with friends. There are 0 consumption lounges where someone 21 and over could hang out and smoke a pre-roll in Danville with some friends. There are hundreds of Danville residents, patronizing Parkway Dispensary and Molly's Lounge due to its proximity of where they live. It's state legal to smoke in a consumption lounge in a dispensary. The expectation is the same responsibility and judgment would be used when at a bar or restaurant that serves alcohol would be used at a cannabis consumption lounge. So anyone who's 21 and over understands what that means to go out and intake intoxicating things, whether it's cannabis or liquor. So there's no difference with any of that. And then, I mean, really, why should people who smoke cannabis be confined to their home to smoke? It doesn't really make much sense. If we're not allowed to open a consumption lounge, we'll apply for a liquor license tomorrow. We don't want to sell alcohol, but we have a space in our building that we spent a lot of money on, millions of dollars. And that's part of our game plan, is to have activities in that space and bring in the public and build community. But most people who go out and want to do activities, they usually want to have a drink or a smoke or something. So it's not really our game plan, but we won't have an option. Our location is ideal for this type of business. It's in a rural part of Danville with no residential housing. It's in a dispensary with armed guards. We'll have a metal detector at the entrance into the lounge. This all seems very reasonable.
Mr. Zerman, your time is up, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. These are all the petitions that we got that are all of your constituents from every ward, 325.
Pastor Randy Downing of Danville.
There you go. I'm passing this out so that you can have a chance to look at this in person. I did some homework. There we go. I did some homework and took a look at what happened in the city of Rockford in Illinois when they didn't pass this ordinance and why they didn't pass this ordinance. I also took the liberty of giving you some information from the state of Colorado Department of Public Health. I also gave you the privilege of looking at some information from the CDC and also from Addiction International. And the reason that I wanted you to see that is because opponents in Rockford argued that lounges can lead to more instances of intoxicated driving. They also raised the issue with potentially harmful side effects to your health. Proponents have said that lounges create a safe and legal environment for adults to consume cannabis. For minors, they also say that it offers regulated seating for education and social interaction. Rockford on April 15, 2024 voted 8-3 against, and again on May 6th, they voted 9-5 against after they put some rules together. Their rules included things like the lounges would not have been permitted to operate past midnight, and they would not be allowed to operate in conjunction with a bar with alcohol. The question is why? What's so big of a deal? You've heard about alcohol and you've heard about marijuana. Here's what happens when the two are mixed together, and 2 out of every 10 people that use marijuana will mix them together. What happens when they get mixed together is it causes a chaotic issue with a time delay in response. So much so that the people cannot tell if they're intoxicated beyond the ability to drive or not when you mix the two together. And 2 out of every 10 people will do that. I don't know about you, but I don't want that for the kids that are learning to drive on the streets. I don't want that for the person who's going to be working with my mother-in-law, helping her, who is a fall risk. I don't want even a person that's working on my car to have been to the lounge before. I don't even think that it's possible for someone to drive a bus after they've been to the lounge. You see here that in Colorado, it's very important to recognize what they said. They said this: at least a minimum for every joint smoked of 12 hours for the THC to clear your system. At least. I have no guarantee that anybody that uses that lounge is going to wait 12 hours, whether they're at the hotel or not, to get back in a car and get behind the wheel. You have a big decision to make. I've added this group to my list of jobs I don't think I would want to take. You have a tremendous job to do. Secondhand smoke is a whole nother factor. The same ingredients that cause cancer in cigarettes are present in a marijuana joint. In fact, they're multiplied present in a marijuana joint, is what the CDC tells us. So the secondhand smoke is a whole nother issue that hasn't even been talked about yet.
Pastor, I apologize. Your time is finished.
Thank you very much for your time.
Miguel Martinez of Danville.
Hello, everybody. So, my name is Miguel Martinez, and I work for Zindar's Property Management. I'm in support of 7 Point's proposed consumption lounge because I feel it would be a safer place to gather and socialize rather than one of the many bars in Danville. I've never been a drinker, and from my experience, alcohol leads to aggression, and cannabis doesn't. The security and IDing is stricter at a dispensary lounge rather than a bar. My only option as of now is Molly's in Tilden. I would much rather support local businesses, and 7 Point has proven to be the best in the area. That's all I got to say for now.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Jordan Dannenberg of Danville.
I just wanted to thank everyone for your time. My name is Jordan Dannenberg. I'm a project manager over at Zindar's Property Management. I'm here in support of the consumption lounge at 7 Point. I believe the lounge would benefit our community tremendously and give people a safe place to go and actually smoke rather than driving around in your car or smoking in places that you're actually not supposed to be smoking. I also believe the lounge gives people somewhere safe to relax, socialize, and do all this safely. I currently go to Tilton to use their consumption lounge and would rather spend my time and money locally here in Danville. A consumption lounge is for sure a way safer location than going to like a local bar. You have to give them an ID actually before you walk in a door, rather than maybe a bartender doesn't notice you for 30 minutes, an hour. Maybe you know, at a bar there's definitely no restrictions on people just walking in and there being too many people there for you to notice that one person, compared to when you go to a lounge, you cannot actually get into any door unless you're giving them your ID and it's been ran through their system. I don't personally drink, so the amount of places that I can actually go and hang out and socialize during the winter are very limited. So, like, my only place I really can go is over to Tilton to their consumption lounge. And that's everything I have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Deontay Brooks of Danville.
How y'all doing? So, things ain't looking up for us. So, I'm here to ask that we table item 8A and 11C until we have a full council, because I feel this is a mental health issue. We have over 2,700 veterans in this community, and 150 medical patients. Me, myself, I have flat feet, a partially torn Achilles, bone spurs. I got a messed up knee, a hip impingement, torn labrum, 3 degenerative discs in my back, 4 in my neck for serving this country. And marijuana helps me get through my day. It really does. Because I seen 2 of my family members die from opioids. And I've seen a lot of my brothers in arms die from opioids. And so maybe if we just had a place where we could meet and we could see each other and talk. Because I'm sorry, I've seen my brothers drink themselves to death, overdose on heroin out there in the streets, go homeless, lose their jobs, lose their careers, lose their lives. So, and I'm going to say this. If the full council is only here 20% of the time, I'm going to start looking at voting records. And I'm going to find out who's not here. And I'll find people to run for those seats for those people who aren't here. And I promise you that. And I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Johnson. Yes, please come forward. Please come forward and state your name for the record, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to change the tempo just a little bit. I just want to make it known, because I'm going to continue to get asked, am I running for Alderman of Ward 7? So the answer is an emphatic yes. But before I say anything else, let me give you a few things that I don't like. High taxes, unnecessary dissension and tension, high cost of living, and getting up too early. Things I will not tolerate: being bullied, disrespected, or bullying and disrespecting other people. I am, in fact, running for 7th Ward, and I have been to this meeting on several occasions, witnessed the deference that's been given to this committee, and also witnessed a lot of disrespect that's been given to this committee. You will never find either of that in my persona. There's never a reason to be uncivil with anyone, and I promise never to do so. Things I like is honesty, friendliness, fairness, and overall goodwill. Again, I am running for 7th Ward, and my last comment is, it is my endeavor to be exciting, functional, effective, and impactful in my campaign. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council this evening? All right, thank you very much. Now we have item 8A. 8A is an ordinance amending Danville City Chapter 150 zoning code for medicinal adult use cannabis zoning petition number 303. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or debate on item 8A?
Discussion.
Yes, Alderman Cooper.
I'd like to make a motion to table this till the March 4th meeting, the same reasons I did before, so.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to table? Yes, Mrs. Wands.
Once again, I say that we only 20% of the time we're in full Full.
Attendance.
So, attendance, thank you. So, the chances of March whatever is 20%. So, I think we need to move ahead with this.
Is there any further discussion or debate? Okay, now you are voting on the amendment. A yes vote is to table the vote until March 4th. A no vote is to vote on it this evening. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Alderman York,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Wilson, Wands,
No.
Bouchard,
No this time.
O'Kane, Iverson,
No.
Poor,
Yes.
Strebing,
Yes.
Pickering,
No.
Ludwig,
No.
Teague,
Yes.
6 yes.
Well, you need Alderman Williams.
Oh, I apologize. Alderman Williams.
Thank you. No.
Okay, thank you. 7 yes.
I'm sorry, Madam Clerk is.
No. Whoa, I got all flustered. I apologize.
I think you missed a couple of yeses, didn't you?
6 yes.
6 yes, the amendment fails. We're now back to the original item 8A. Is there any additional discussion or debate? Vice Mayor.
My question is, I guess I'm confused as to why this is on here twice. So why we have this on, like, why is it under zoning as an ordinance, but then it's under public works as an ordinance? Because if it's an ordinance.
Yeah, it's a good question. You'll see it the same as the solar ordinance proposed tonight. It was one minor change performed to Chapter 150 to the zoning code, which had to be separately considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission to make that text amendment. In turn, the regulatory language comes forward in an actual separate chapter to the code, which needs to be considered by City Council alone, which forces 2 ordinances.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is only on the zoning.
Correct. The strike through on the disallowance of cannabis consumption lounges.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion or debate on item 8A? Yes, Alderwoman Pickering.
Well, I think this is a decision we have to decide. Is this going to make our community a better place to live? I have some problems with this. First of all, if we do okay this, there are 2 other lounges, two other dispensaries that could file for a license, so we could have 3 lounges in our city after this, if this is okay. Second of all, another problem I have is when they have these events, okay, people that come to these events, how do we know what they had before they come to the events? Have they had alcohol? Have they had edible cannabis? Have they smoked? We don't know what they have, and we know that cannabis is a mind-altering drug. So when they come to these events and they spend 2 hours, like I said, we don't know what they did before. Then they spend 2 hours. They're going to leave. This not only will cause them problems maybe with their driving ability, with their ability to think. So I can't see how this will make our community a safer or better place to live. So I cannot support this.
Alderman Cooper.
Okay, I got several questions. Mr. Yates, our chief, have they talked to you about everything they're doing out there and your opinion on all this?
I went out there and toured the location. They discussed different areas. We got to look at it once ordinance passes. If there's issues, we'll be reactive. There has to be a contingency in case that it does pass, and the only way we can be proactive is put the restrictions learned from other communities in our ordinance before it gets started. Okay. The question was brought to me is whether or not I'll endorse it. And I told him while we stood in there, no, I will not. That's not the scope of what the chief of police should do. And the questions that I will answer will be based off my knowledge and experience on a concern of public safety only. Not social acceptance, not my personal beliefs, but whether or not there can be some type of level of assurances or expectations of public safety. And I told them what my concerns were. Some of them were addressed in their plans, such as security, not only security, but security that's trained. We don't know what a private security company, what their levels of training are. I'm sorry, I forget Amy's last name.
Miss Lee.
Haugen. That's Haugen.
Haugen. Okay. I'm
Haugen.
sorry.
If she's a certified officer, she has a ITB number.
Oh.
She can attend training. The academy is the minimum standard. Those are things that we would be willing to help to make sure that if this did pass, we would assist any way we could in getting their security trained up. However, there's other challenges, such as how do they leave? How do they go from point A to point B? How do they safely enter the traffic on Lynch? If they do go from one business to another, what kind of partnerships can you build with them to possibly have a shuttle? I don't know, but those are the concerns for me.
But aren't those the same concerns as a bar in town? I mean, it sounds. I'd like to know the difference between this and a bar, and I don't think there is any.
Scientifically, I won't argue that because that's outside of my knowledge. But I would caution on comparing it with a bar because we have problems at bars also.
Right.
So, are you looking at the addition? It should be looked at as an alternative or something people do, but you can't. It's not apples to apples. It's apples to oranges. So essentially, my focus is on the public safety aspect, whether this and the ordinances that we've worked on as a team to set in place in contingents of this passing is that the proactive approach to maintain restrictions that we can at least gear it towards a public safety concern. But the expectations, you don't eliminate risk because you only know the risk coming to fruition after the event takes place, if that makes sense. So you have to be you got to be cautious on that.
Okay.
The other thing is on enforcement of impaired drivers. We have a PBT, part of the probable cause. We have less intrusive ways of enforcing driving under the influence of alcohol. There are challenges, and it's much more intrusive to enforce DUI cannabis because there's not really it's new. So again, whether I'm for it or against it, that's beyond my scope, and that's a decision that it's left to you and your constituents as representatives.
Okay, and there's a rumor going around that is there marijuana floating around town has fentanyl? Is it fentanyl with it, or have you heard that rumor? I'm sure you have.
I think with the amount of fentanyl that's come into this country over the last few years, that you have to be concerned about fentanyl in a lot of things. Have we had people that had fentanyl overdoses that swore to us that they never took anything that they believed to be an opiate, whether it be heroin or fentanyl itself? Yeah, we've had that, and it's that's a concern.
And I would think that what they're selling is probably a lot more cleaner than what the people are getting off the streets. And if people out here don't think it's going on the street, you're more than welcome to come to the courthouse any day of the week and smell them, because you can smell it all the way through. Logan, I guess the question I have next would be the purpose of the zoning commission. What is their purpose?
Yeah, it's a recommendation-based commission to then be transferred on to the city council. A majority recommendation, a pass from the Planning and Zoning Commission, will serve as a majority vote at the city council level, and a non-recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission requires a supermajority vote at the city council level.
And they get the same information we do, or probably a little bit more than we might.
Yeah, they get the same documents as the city council does.
Okay, so this passed through zoning commission 6-0, unanimous. There was no issues out there addressed. It was unanimous vote.
Yeah, it was a 7-0 vote.
And they're an advisory authority to us, apparently, right?
That's correct.
That's one thing, and if I was on that zoning commission, and I've talked to Pete Goodwin about this, and if we're going to vote this down and they're voting 6-0, I think we're just pretty much saying, why are you guys even here? Tilton's taking stuff away from us. They're taking a business, big business away from us, and they've got this smoking lounge out there. The city could use the revenue. I've talked to Alyssa about trying to get some figures, and we can't do that, but I think there's revenue to be had in here, and I think it's something we probably need. And I really, you can throw this argument up at me on this bar stuff. I don't think there's any difference between this and a bar. And everybody says you've got to come in with this as an open mind, and I don't think that's going on. 90% of you guys just voted on a budget that has the city of Danville carrying a liquor license and selling liquor, and you guys didn't have a problem with that. So I'm supporting this, and I hope you do too. And I think I don't see anything wrong with it, and I have firm belief that Amy and Brad will run it like a pretty good business out there, and I think they'll have pretty good enforcement codes out there along with it. So hopefully we can support them guys. So that's my point. I don't have anything else.
Any further? Yes, Mr. Butler.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the chief there making the comment of comparing the alcohol and the marijuana, and that they can't be compared as apples, but apples to oranges. And I'd like to ask him, the question is that which one is more devastating than the other? Yes, my first question. Chief.
Is that to me?
Yes, sir.
I think I'd have to look it up, but I think there's quite a bit of empirical data, the damage and societal impact to alcohol and alcohol overuse and abuse. I do not have the data on cannabis.
Yeah, okay, because as I was educated as well there by Amy, is that the more of their marijuana that they consume, you just reach a certain height, and then the more you smoke, you still got that same height as far as non-impaired. And now by me being in Danville all my life, and for the past 69 years, I've seen a lot of accidents and alcoholics, driving around drunk, tearing up cars, and watched some of my families as well. And now the marijuana, I would rather to have them out there at the lounge, they're smoking that stuff, than to see them out on the street corners. I go up Main Street all the time. They sitting there drinking the alcohol up on the the wall up there by that one liquor store or store, whatever it is, by that. And, I see it every day. They drinking alcohol and smoking and whatever, And so when you go by there, you smell it. And sometime in my neighborhood, I smell it. And then you go like at, that downtown here, you smell it. So, like I say, I would rather see them in a lounge. I don't care if we have about 4 or 5 lounges. As long as they're all out in the lounge, they're just, lounging around, smoking and stuff, having a good time, I would rather to see that than to see them on the street. And, and me, myself, I would vote for it.
Alderwoman Wands.
Alderman Butler,
Hmm?
you're not going to stop seeing what you see on the streets.
Well, that's true.
You're not going to stop that. Those who are purchasing that type of stuff is going to keep doing that stuff
Right.
all the time. It's not going to stop what you see, unfortunately. I wish it would,
Yeah,
but it's not.
that's
It's not
true.
going to stop that.
Mhm.
So, if you think the lounges are going to stop that, you're
Y'all know it's not going to
somewhere
stop
where I'm
it.
not.
Right.
But
I
I'd
know
like
it's
to go
not
back
gonna
to
stop.
the public safety, if I could, just for a moment, Chief. I understand the prevention that you were talking about, and they're talking about, and that's great. The prevention that you're trying to take, that's great. My concern is the after. I'm not comparing alcohol with marijuana. My phone has rung off of the hook today. I'm hoarse from talking on the phone to people who are outraged, and I say, come to council. Let council know how you feel about this situation. They said, no, it tags us. For some reason, they're not comfortable coming. That's sad. I don't know if it's on our part or whose part it's on. But anyway, my phone has just rung off the hook. And they've asked me to vote no. But the public safety part that I'm concerned about, I had a friend driving down, what is that road? The main road?
Vermilion Street? Main
No,
Street?
the out there.
Lynch Road.
Lynch Road, yes. And she was going the speed limit, so she said anyway. She was going the speed limit, and from the marijuana shop, comes across, crosses that aisle. She was coming from the highway, the freeway, and smashed into the side of her. Now, what I'm asking the chief is, what do we have in place to protect the after? I mean, we're looking at all the before, which is great. But what about the after effects? What about the citizens who are out driving, the children that are on their bicycles, the elderly person
Mr.
that
Brooks,
can't?
it's not appropriate to come
The
forward
elderly-
at this time. Mr. Brooks, it's not appropriate to come forward at this time.
The elderly people who are crossing the street. This is some of the arguments that the people gave me when they called me, and I'm just relaying it on to you because that's my place as their alderman to do that. So I have to speak. But what do we got that is going to help us? The innocents.
Again, these are unknowns because this is new. I think if you may want to take a look at some of the reports from maybe Colorado Department of Transportation. I don't have the figures. If someone wants to look at that, they can maybe draw some comparables. But again, that's only going to give you the raw data of whether or not they've had an increase or decrease of traffic crashes You don't know if there's a causation or a correlation. I don't know those studies. I often criticize of anecdotal information and claims, so I've got to be cautious not to do that as well. But that was the concern that I brought up to the 7 Points folk on the, what do we do afterwards? And it would be a challenge, but we just don't know what the risks are. As far as what can we do, it's a difficult challenge.
There's no testing for it to see.
Testing requires a urinalysis or a blood draw. You can't really do that on a traffic stop.
Anything further, Mrs. Wands?
For those reasons that I can't support this.
Thank you. Alderman, Vice Mayor Teague.
One, I want to commend Logan and Mamushu. I know she's not here, but or at least I don't see her. Anyway, one of the things I know that you addressed in this ordinance is some correspondence that we got from Tilton. And so in my reading of it, because I hadn't read it before Public Works last week, but I did read it before tonight. So one of the things that you address, and I just want to thank you for addressing that, is in 91.005 subsection E, which says the facility cannot be rented, leased to outside entities for any purpose, including private parties. And I know that was a concern that was sent to us because of whatever issues may have occurred in Tilton at the consumption lounge out there. So this one addresses that concern. So thank you for that. My question for Chief is are you aware of any methodology or approach that might be used to prevent a person who is already has already consumed a marijuana-based product from going to a bar and getting a drink? Because one of the things, and I asked that because one of the things that was brought up was, well, a person could have drank and gone to the lounge, and I'm like, well, it could maybe happen the other way around, but I don't know because I don't consume, and I drink at home. But so I wouldn't know if somebody would be asked for specific questions. Like I know that there's bartenders look at people and say, you've had enough, and make sure that, there's the whole thing with that to make sure that they don't have people walk out and go hit somebody. So I'm just wondering, do you know of any methodology that they might use to ascertain whether or not somebody had consumed marijuana before they got a drink at any of the bars that we have in town?
No, I think it probably, you'd have to ask a bartender, but I think it would be unreasonable to believe that people don't go to a bar after consuming cannabis.
Okay, so
is that the question?
Yeah, that's really I think the point that I was trying to get at, and I didn't know if there's something that could be done to prevent that, because one of the things that was said was, well, we don't want people to go from bars to the lounge, but we can very easily have somebody come from home and haven't gotten high at home or in their car, and then go to a bar.
Yeah, there within lies the challenge.
Right.
They're gonna have to be on their toes because if someone leaves there and there's some type of traffic crash and there's some type of liable claim, then there's going to be the argument, well, it wasn't the cannabis, it wasn't the alcohol, it was the other, and so on and so forth. But that would be a civil argument in nature. The driving under the influence or intoxicated would be the criminal aspect. So, these are challenges that I discussed with them that they're going to have to consider. You've got different, whether it's, I don't know how that even relates to like dram shop and stuff like that. That's out beyond my scope. But I think it would be unreasonable to expect that, I don't know how someone would do that either way. It's, again, I don't want to answer outside of my.
Thank you, Chief. I think one of the things that is more concerning to me than the consumption lounge is the fact that they would apply for a liquor license if they don't get a consumption lounge. And the reason why I find that concerning is because there's nothing to keep the person from going into their car after they leave. Obviously, you're not supposed to drive high, right? But you're also not supposed to drive intoxicated. So there's nothing to keep people from. I think the likelihood of some cross-use scenario that was brought up earlier is more likely if there is a bar selling liquor at the place where marijuana is sold than if it's only marijuana being sold and they're consumed at the place where marijuana is sold. And then the other thing that I think is important to looking at the example that you gave, Alderman Wands, with your friend who got hit by somebody leaving the dispensary. The assumption would probably be that that person smoked as soon as they got in their car. Well, if the person actually had been in the lounge and had smoked and sat for 2 hours, then they may or may not, I don't know, because I don't use, so this is an assumption on my part. They might be less likely to have hit somebody because then it would have worn off, as opposed to I just smoked and now I started my car. So to me, the fact that your friend got hit after somebody left the dispensary is an argument for why we need a consumption lounge, so that people don't get in their car as soon as they walked out the dispensary, smoked something, and then drove.
How do we know they hadn't smoked before they went in and bought more? We don't know.
We don't know.
But you don't know how people drink before they go into the bar either. I mean,
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
so
true.
I mean,
we can't assume any of that.
Right.
We got to get rid of that theory. It just
Alderman Pashard. Alderman Pashard.
There apparently is no real control over this, but I've studied this and read this cannabis information up and down and upside down and everything else, and I also looked at what the Mayor of Tilton had published, and apparently they didn't either have a game plan or they controlled it very, very bad. I hope if this gets voted in, that Brad and Amy would follow and learn by what Tilton had exposed to us, the bad parts. But saying all that, I am still a no vote.
Mrs. Pickering.
I think we all have to realize this is what we're voting on, is a consumption lounge that is going to be serving mind-altering drugs. We do not know what people have had before they went in there and by the time they leave. How can this make our community a safer and healthier place? That's my concern.
And it's all legal. Just want to throw that out there. It's all legal. And I think your Tilton was having problems with private parties. I think if you looked at that, I think your private parties would be the issue out there where people were carrying this stuff in.
Well, yeah, that's.
I don't think that's going to happen with these people.
I was considering about
I think
who
that
would
needs-
in their right mind, and I shouldn't say in their right mind, but would want to give people that's been drinking and smoking or whatever, and give them a building and say, hey, it's yours till daylight or whatever. It's wonder just didn't really go real bad on them. But you got to have some kind of restrictions on all this stuff. It's just all there is to it. We don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what any individual is going to go in or out of a bar or consumption lounge, whatever, how they're going to respond and react. We just don't know. Whether it's good for Danville or not, I really don't know. I just feel like that there's a lot of things that we'd have to overcome that it would make me content with it.
Mr. Butler.
And then on that same note as well, maybe the lounge should be open all night. People sleep it off. You know, goodness. You're right to get home safely the next day.
I don't think even Brad Mamie want that.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the chief another question there too as well, is that on his stops, and I'm sure that you've stopped, some been intoxicated, some had marijuana in the vehicle, but on some of your stops, have you had any that didn't have any marijuana in the vehicle, but you smell it on them? Now, my B question on that is that do you take the car, or do you get them out of the car and arrest them, or what take place? Because I know that when they drink alcohol, I know they drunk. And then you take the vehicle there because I know some young fellas that, it happened to them. But marijuana, I'm asking the question, Chief.
Well, legal cannabis has to be packaged and transported in a specific manner, okay? If it's not, then they're still subject to the same penalties, such as public nuisance tow. Or if it's not packaged properly, if it's open as, alcohol, and then there's similar ordinances along with like driving under the influence of alcohol. Is that the question you're asking me?
No.
Are they still subject to being towed if they smell
no.
like it?
No, my question was if that you don't find any marijuana in the vehicle, but you smell it.
Well, then, if you find nothing in the vehicle and you only smell it, there would not necessarily be probable cause that a crime's been committed, so that would be irrelevant at that point. You'd have to look at whether or not the officer, based off his observations prior to the stop, whether the vehicle was driving in a manner that would indicate someone's impaired. And then you pull them over and you determine based off your observations that there's probable cause to make an arrest. Yeah, then the vehicle could be towed regardless whether it's in there or not, if they believe that they're under the influence. But there wouldn't be an arrest for possession by consumption. It's different.
Okay, thank you.
Call for question.
Madam,
One more question. So this that we're voting on right now is just to strike the language, facility may not host on-site consumption of cannabis. That's what we're voting on right now, right?
What you're voting on right now is the strike through of language of the
That's what we're voting on
consumption
right
launch.
now.
Correct, not the regulations.
Not the regulations.
Correct.
Right.
Please remember when we get to the other one, we've already had this discussion.
Right. Yes,
Let's
exactly.
not do another hour and a half
Exactly.
saying the same things again.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Alderman Cooper,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Wilson, Wands,
No.
Bouchard,
No.
O'Kane, Iverson,
Yes.
Hoare,
Yes.
Streebing,
Yes.
Pickering,
No.
Ludwig,
No.
Teague,
Yes.
Williams,
No.
York,
Yes.
7 yes.
7 yes, the motion fails. At this time, we have item 8B, a resolution, an ordinance amending Danville City Chapter 150 zoning code for solar energy systems, zoning petition number 304. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate on item 8B? Yes, Vice Mayor.
So I don't know if this is appropriate for now or later, so I'm just going to ask the questions I have now because they seem to be in both places. So what's the rationale for removing the buffering, the monitoring and maintenance, the advertising, the requirements for underground power lines, and the 90-day removal after abandonment?
Okay, so just so I'm making sure I had the question right, removing or adding?
I saw them struck through.
Yeah, so they're being removed from the zoning code because they're being added into a separate building regulation code.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Then my next question is, okay, so then the new code is the 155?
That's correct.
Got you. Okay. So then my next question is, this will require, and I think you said this last week, so I just want to make sure that I'm remembering correctly. This will require special use permits for any of them in I-1 or I-2.
That's correct. Ag I-1, I-2, the consideration tonight is to change it from a permitted use by right to special use consideration for large-scale standalone solar sites.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Any further discussion or debate on item 8B? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Butler?
Yes.
Wilson, Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane, Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streebing?
Yes.
Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
12 yes.
12 yes, the motion carries. Now you have before you the payrolls of February 7th and 14th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Wilson, Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane, Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streebing?
Yes.
Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams? York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
12 yes.
12 yes, the motion carries. You also have before you the vouchers payable of February 11th and 18th, as well as a special run from February 10th. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane, Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streebing?
Yes.
Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? 12 yes.
12 yes, the motion carries. At this time, we will receive our Public Works Committee report. Chairman Poor.
Thank you, Mayor. 11A is an ordinance approving the purchase of real estate at 18 East Fifth for sanitary sewer alignment along Jefferson Street. Move to dispense reading, ask for your approval, and we'll need a second.
Second.
Questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane, Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streebing?
Yes.
Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? Wands?
Yes.
12 yes.
12 yes, thank you. 11B is an ordinance approving the purchase of real estate for the community improvement for 125 North Vermillion Street and amending the fiscal year 24-25 Fund 310 budget. Move to dispense reading, ask for your approval, and need a second.
Second.
Questions? Alderman Cooper.
Is this DC Fitness we're talking about here?
That's correct.
Yes.
How long has that guy owned that property?
I believe it's been close to 2 decades.
So he's on that place, and the top floors are ready to collapse. It should be a condemnable building. Am I right or wrong?
From the interior inspection, from a code standpoint, I believe it would be very, very close, if not condemnable, by review of the roof of the structure.
So in reality, this is the second time we bailed somebody out of a bad situation. We did it on that place on North Vermillion, dry cleaner's place, right? And now we're doing it on this guy here on Vermillion. I mean, you have to support it, I guess, but this is becoming a frequent thing, and I just hopefully it slows down. I guess, you know, from sitting in this chair, and I imagine everybody feels the same way, is to have a successful town, you need, or a successful community, you need a pretty strong downtown to have that. And I'm beginning to wonder, I think we're losing more out of downtown than what we're gaining. You look across the street from this, you got the Heartland building over there, and then what, the J.C. Penney building, am I right?
Correct.
Has anybody checked the roofs out on them, or is that, how close are they to becoming condemnable?
Yeah, so we do have knowledge on both of them just from an aerial standpoint, not up close, but from a drone. The J.C. Penney roof structure, you can see it from the street level that there is a hole in the roof, but the Sears roof we cannot see any damage or penetrations to that roof.
Is that the one where the tile's fallen down? They've had a water leak in there?
Yeah, that's the structure that the fire suppression system froze on.
Okay, there's two scenarios or two situations right there. Is there any others that the roof is issues where, I mean?
Yeah, so other than the ones that we've addressed in past city council meetings, none that are apparent right now for roof, JCPenney and Sears, and the Adams building are the big three that come up in conversation as being in the worst condition.
And I guess this follows the other part of the ordinance here, and I'll just briefly touch on that, is this, eventually these buildings are probably going to have to come down. They're probably not savable. And is that going to be one of our responsibilities too? So, you know, there's a good possibility this city could be looking at $2 million or $3 million of investments to tear them down.
Yeah.
How can we stop that?
Yeah. So I've done years of research on this now, and I've came to one conclusion. There may be other answers that I'm not aware of. I'll keep trying to find others. The only one that I can come up to the conclusion of is actual law has to change. So to quote unquote, the buck doesn't stop at the local level with the property. So whenever at the local level, whenever court orders or abatements for demolitions or code violations are given, they are addressed and leaned to the address, not a name, a business entity, a corporation, anything. So as soon as the property owner sells it or loses it on back taxes, essentially the liability disappears, to my knowledge. The only way to fix that, in my opinion, is at the state level by law, is so the buck doesn't stop at the property. The liability needs to continue on with a name. Now, there's going to be other loopholes like bankruptcy and filing property ownership under one LLC. I understand that. It's not fail-proof. But I can't come up with another solution to this issue.
And to do the...
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Alderman Cooper, I know one of the concerns that you and I share is that when there are bad properties, how long do they stay that way? What do we do about them? That kind of thing. We have very aggressive code enforcement. Our lead inspector has condemned over 100 structures in the last year alone. The problem is, as Logan said, we can get all the court orders that we want. Right now, if your house were terrible and we got a court order to tear it down, and you just chose not to tear it down and you chose to walk away from it, there's not anything that we can do about it. We can't put a lien on any other property that you and Miss Judy own. We can't put a lien against your income or anything like that. So it is, we either continue to let the problem linger so that it gets worse and worse and worse, and then it becomes something that you and I can't stand and that we're getting calls about constantly, or we take some action to try to address it. And I think the choice has to be, especially in places like downtown that are crowded and congested, and especially if we want to keep making progress. The good news is we've actually gained more than we've lost, thankfully. So I'm sorry that you see it that way, but we have.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that, we've got. You walk downtown, you walk by that Heartland building. It's a concern. And it's the same concerns you have, and I do too. But I would like for the city to find a way to stop this occurring, and there's got to be a way. And if Logan's saying we may have to get some type of state support or legislature, pursue it. We're going to have to,
The truth is, Alderman, we've done everything that we can. Unfortunately, as we've discussed previously, for as long as I've been alive, unfortunately, code enforcement was not a priority. We weren't aggressive about it. We've become really much so. We've torn down over 400 bad structures in the city of Danville over the last number of years, and we are making big progress. We're starting to clean up neighborhoods. There are a couple, like West Downtown, that we've got close to cleared up for possible redevelopment. We have done and will continue to do every single thing that we can within our power to make sure that people have good places to live and that they have good neighborhoods and that they have good places to shop and do business. However, once we've done everything we can, there's nothing more that we can do. except for appeal to support and changes at the state level so that we could attach liens on these properties to these people who own them. Here's one of the most frustrating things for me, honestly. We have had some of the wealthiest people in our community abandon properties in this town. For example, look at the dry cleaners. We all know who owned that. They were wonderful pillars of this community. They literally sold it for like $5,000 or $10,000, knowing that these people that bought it didn't have a pot to, excuse me.
I'll finish it for you.
They didn't have any that's right. That they didn't have any resources to fix it. Not only that, but they left it full of dozens of drums of chemicals that we had to get the EPA involved to come in and clean out. Now, these are some of the richest people in Danville, Illinois, that left this dump for us. Now we've got to spend a couple $100,000 to finish cleaning it up. And so the difference is we can either be proactive and we can fight and we can get ahead of it, or we can just wait. Because let's say what happens, a building like this. We do everything we can in court. They don't do anything on it. They don't pay the taxes for 3 years. Someone buys the taxes for 1 year of that whole time, then it starts over. So now we're waiting 3, 6, 5, 9, 10 years to be able to address this. In the meantime, it's bringing down all of the rest of the property around it, and it's trash that we all have to look at and worry about harming somebody. So all I'll say to you is that we've been aggressive. We'll continue to do everything that we possibly can to make it safer and better. But there are times like this when we're going to have to bite the bullet. Otherwise, we're going to have the same kind of problems that, on the other hand, you say how much you don't like, you know? And we will pursue every option. I might have the ear of our state representative. Senator Faraci is a friend as well. Logan and I can plan a meeting to discuss this with them specifically.
But surely you think something has to be done down there too. I mean,
my question would be, what solution do you have?
I wish there was an answer. If I knew the answer, I'd give it to you.
Yes, I know
it's
you
going to
would.
be torn down. I have a feeling it's going to be torn down. The sooner the better. But,
yes, sir.
Okay, these people own the building, or the ones we're talking about. What are we doing to them, I guess? I mean, are we just fining them, or
they have gone through the entire court process. There are times where we have the right to demolish the building if they don't do it. They're supposed to demolish it, but then if they don't, one thing we've started adding, and it used to be, you have a bad building, we go after you, we put a fine on you. You get a daily fine, $100 a day, let's say. Okay, if you don't care, you aren't ever going to pay that fine. So really, we've wasted a whole bunch of time and energy. Yeah. So then, when Jim Simon was here, we implemented something new that has helped us with some of these cases. We put in a right that if they're required to demolish it, and if they don't do it within a certain time, then we as the city have the right to demolish it. The problem is right now, Logan, we have 70, 100 cases where we have the right to demolish a house, but we don't have the resource, or a property, but we don't have the resource to demolish it at this time. So what I'm telling you is we literally do everything that we rightfully can under the law to go after these people. The bottom line is, people get so frustrated and they say, Mayor, I'm tired of coffee shops. I'm tired of Mexican restaurants. I am tired of car washes. And I would say the same thing about on the converse side. We don't control, just like I can't tell you what to do with your money, I can't tell an investor to do it with their money. So if they want to build a coffee shop, they have every right to. And if their coffee shop is going to go where something bad or dilapidated was, great. But I cannot control them. I cannot force somebody to spend their money how I wish for them to. And unfortunately, on the converse side, with this bad stuff, with people leaving their trash for us to clean up, sometimes some of the richest people in Danville, I can't force them to do anything with their money. And unless the law changes, we do everything that we lawfully can under the law to force them to do what's right. Good people take their resources and do what's right. People that don't that don't care about others, they do what they're going to do.
But and I get what you're saying. I don't have a problem with that. It's like this scenario right now. We're paying $80,000 for a building that should be condemned. I don't like the city being put in that position. Okay, and that's where I'm coming from.
I don't either. Again, you know that we 100% agree.
We're bailing out this guy, and it's his responsibility, and it's just his responsibility. And I think
Here's the
down
way I
road.
have to think of it in my mind in order for me to not go slap crazy and be so angry all the time. We can either do something about it or we cannot.
Well, we are going to do something about it, and it's going to cost us, and it's costing the taxpayers to do that.
That's exactly right.
Right.
But the other option is it sits there for a minimum of, well, the taxes have been paid. So it sits there for at least 3 more years if they don't pay the taxes. It sits there for, if somebody buys the taxes along the way, somebody from out of town, this happens to us all the time. Some investor says, oh, look at this downtown property. I can get it for $3,000 on back taxes. They pay the taxes. Then it starts that clock over again, so we can't do anything. So then instead of being able to take care of a problem in, let's say, a year or 2 and make room for redevelopment, then we sit there and look at it rot to the ground for the next 3 to 10 plus years as we have many large buildings in this facility and we don't have an opportunity to move forward.
But
This is us taking our opportunity to move forward. Instead of tearing it down, instead of waiting for it to hurt somebody or to continue to rot and cause problems for the other buildings and for safety issues and things like that, we can spend $80,000, which stinks, to be proactive. And I don't like it and I can't stand it, but we've done everything else we can. So we can choose to be proactive and help our downtown, or we can just let the problem rot.
But we couldn't condemn it during the whole period before another sale happens, and where we could just tear it down.
A lot of things have been condemned already. And they,
like these buildings downtown we're talking about. I mean,
the building is, I don't know if it's,
Yeah, DC Fitness, we weren't aware of the condition of the roof until we were granted permission upon investigation of acquisition. We were not aware of the roof issues until that moment in time.
okay.
so we can fight in court to condemn it and take a couple of years doing that process while it still rots. And your point,
I'm just
I
voicing my
understand.
frustration.
It's probably one of the biggest frustrations that I face as mayor because it's one of the hardest problems to overcome. But I appreciate our team because they are working to be proactive.
But I'd like to see it downtown that flourishes, and hopefully we can get that accomplished. That's.
Well, you know, we did a lot of investment even before we got this with straightening up sidewalks and things like that. We've also received $3 million recently for infrastructure so that our roads are draining better. We have better sidewalks and that kind of thing, better lighting. And so, you know, we are working to get it ready so that when we build it, they can come. And we have a lot of things that are happening already, and then we have a lot of things that are on the edge of happening that I believe are really exciting for our community. But we have to do our part, and I believe this is us doing our part as much as it makes me sick.
Anyone else? Roll call 11B, please.
Alderman O'Kane, Iverson,
Yes.
Hoare,
Yes.
Strebing,
Yes.
Pickering,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Cooper,
Oh boy. Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Wilson, Wands,
Yes.
Pashard,
Yes.
12 yes.
12 yes, thank you. 11C is an ordinance amending this Danville City Code. Well, it's a resolution, isn't it?
No, this is
It's an ordinance, okay. An ordinance amending Danville City Code, Chapter 91, Cannabis Consumption Facility. Are we still doing that, or since we're...
There's no reason.
It's not permissible under current use.
I think you still have to
But I
vote
think
on
we
it,
still
but
have
it's
to
null
vote
and
on
void.
it.
Yes.
Oh, it's null and void. We still have to vote.
Yes.
Okay. Move to dispense to read and ask for your approval.
Second.
Okay.
See, and that's where I've got a problem with the 14 not being here, because I think we might have hurt them on that vote. I mean, I think there was a couple other people here. It might have been a yes, and everything would have been hunky-dory, but that's why I tried to do it, and so be it. But I just wanted to state that.
Yep, agreed. Roll call, please.
Alderman Iverson,
Okay, I'm confused as the yes
I'm
and no is on
confused
this
too.
now.
What are we voting on?
If we vote,
How do we vote, Logan?
Yeah,
Just to-
you're voting on the approval of the regulations. So even if you vote yes, you're gonna essentially, if you vote yes, majority, you will be putting these regulations into the city code book of ordinances. But per chapter 150, there cannot be a consumption lounge without the approval of that zoning amendment. So again, it would be null and void if it was approved. It'd be a chapter that is taken that cannot be utilized.
That you spent a whole bunch of time writing.
Correct.
So we can still vote no, but it'd be null and, I mean, vote yes, but it would be null and void. So,
Yes.
right, okay, gotcha.
So you might as well vote no.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Alderman Iverson,
Um, yes.
Poor,
Yes.
Streebing,
Yes.
Pickering,
Yes.
Ludwig,
No.
Teague,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Wilson, Wands,
No.
Bouchard,
No.
9 yes.
9 yes. So it's on the books now, but it goes nowhere. But it's on the books, so when it comes back again.
Yeah, we now have regulations for consumption lounges.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. 11D is an ordinance amending the Danville City Code, Chapter 155, Commercial Solar Projects. Move to dispense with reading. Ask for your approval. Need a second.
Second.
Questions on the solar?
So do we have to vote yes on a sunny day?
Yeah. That's, okay, roll call, please.
Chairman Poor,
Yes.
Chairman Streebing,
Yes.
Alderman Pickering,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Wilson, Wands,
Yes.
Bouchard,
Yes.
O'Kane, Iverson,
Yes.
12 yes.
12 yes, thank you. 11E is a ordinance amending the Danville City Code, Chapter 160, Historic Preservation. Move to dispense with reading. Ask for your approval. Need a
Second.
Okay. Questions on this? Alderman Cooper.
Okay, we tear down these buildings, Logan. And we do a stick building in its place. Are we avoiding historic codes on that?
Yeah. So not just new, but essentially in summary, what this ordinance is doing is placing a difference between the local Lincoln Park Historic District and if a downtown district was to be created, in complete transparency, it's being considered. The local guidelines that the Lincoln Park residents have to abide by for building would not be the same for downtown districts. So there are a lot of obstacles that you have to overcome to make improvements on the exterior home in the Lincoln Park Historic District. A survey of the downtown districts was completed in partnership with DDI and another consultant, and they were adamantly opposed to creating a historic district in downtown Danville if they had to follow the same building guidelines. So what this does is separate the two, so we can get the benefits of a local or a state historic district, which is essentially tax credits, and they still have to follow historic guidelines if they tap into those credits, and the Lincoln Park district. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes real
Okay.
good sense because I don't really like the Lincoln Park deal either, but that's.
Neither do they.
Huh?
Neither do they.
Well, why don't we eliminate that one too?
Okay, other questions? Roll call, please.
Chairman Streebing,
Yes.
Alderman Pickering,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Wilson, Wands,
Yes.
Bouchard,
Yes.
O'Kane, Iverson,
Yes.
Poor,
Yes.
12 yes.
12 yes, thank you. 11F is a resolution amending the contract amount for the Lakeside Drive, Eastgate Drive, and Woodland Trace pump station improvements. Move dispense with reading. Ask for your approval. Need a second.
Second.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Pickering,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Cooper,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Wilson, Wands,
Yes.
Bouchard,
Yes.
O'Kane, Iverson,
Yes.
Poor,
Yes.
Streebing,
Yes.
12 yes.
12 yes, thank you. 11G is a resolution approving a professional service agreement for the Riverfront Trail concept design and amending the fiscal year 24-25 Fund 107 budget. Move dispense reading. Ask for approval. Need a second.
Second.
Vice Mayor Teague.
So, can those of us who were not on the council in 2016 get a copy of the downtown riverfront conceptual plan from someplace?
Yeah.
I could not find it on the website, so
I'll dig it up for you.
thank you.
Yeah.
So, Vice Mayor, just so you'll know, we have commissioned a West Side Trails plan, which is an update to that. So this part, the riverfront side of it, would be more on the updated plan that we've voted on since you've been here, I believe. That may have been in, I think it was 21, maybe 20 or 21. But we'll provide you with both of them.
Depends on when it happened at 21.
That's right. Yes.
So, and the only reason I ask is because it specifically cites it. The resolution specifically cites that plan. That's why I'm asking for that. If it was subject to some other plan, then I would have been asking for the other plan. And then my other question then is, so then the trail plan is not part of the downtown riverfront conceptual plan?
It is.
Okay, so then does that plan contain more than just, I read through what was being proposed. So I'm like, okay, trail, okay, overlooks, seating. Does the plan consist of more than just that?
Yeah. Yeah, both of them, which the mayor alluded to, the riverfront plan and the West Side Trails plan. I think let's focus on the West Side Trails plan right now because it's more recent. It has the whole economic development outlook in the dream other than the one trail.
Okay. Okay, that's all the questions I have on that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alderman Cooper, nothing? I'm good. Anyone else? Roll call, please, on 11G.
Alderman Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane? Iverson?
Yes.
Poor?
Yes.
Streebing?
Yes.
Pickering?
Yes.
12 yes.
12 yes, thank you. 11H is a resolution approving a professional service agreement for the downtown Phase 1 sanitary sewer rehabilitation program. Move Spence Reed, ask for your approval. Need a second. Okay. Questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane? Iverson?
Yes.
Poor?
Yes.
Streebing?
Yes.
Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
12 yes.
12 yes, thank you. 11I is a resolution approving emergency repairs to the yard waste horizontal grinder and a budget amendment to the fiscal year 24-25 solid waste budget. Move to Spence Reed and ask for approval. Need a second.
Second.
Questions? Okay. Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson? Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane? Iverson?
Yes.
Poor?
Yes.
Streebing?
Yes.
Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
12 yes.
12 yes, thank you. 11J is a resolution authorizing application to Illinois Housing Development Authority for funds for rehabilitation, funds for rehabilitating properties. Move to Spence Reed and ask for your approval.
Second.
Okay, questions other than, yes, the rehabilitating. Go ahead, Vice Mayor Teague.
So, first question is, how much did we ask for previously for Ida?
So, in total, with the second ask, it was $2.3 million.
So then the prior was 1.7?
Yeah. So it was 1.4, and then we got somewhere a little over 600,000 for the second amount.
And then my next question is, how many additional houses does the 600,000 give us?
Yeah. For this program application, or okay, so this is a little different.
Okay, so this is not the same Ida
Not the
program.
same.
Okay.
This is not the same. Yeah. This is a maximum of $50,000 per structure, and it separates them uniquely into three categories. HRAP is the name of the program. There's roof only, whole house rehab, or accessibility grants. To be quite transparent with you, what I can see is doing all of those services and whole home rehabs for each of them, because roof only, you have a max of $25,000, accessibility has a max, and then whole home is $50,000 cap. What we're going to ask for is $600,000 in this application. So I can foresee, based on the prior rehabilitations we did in the other IDA program, is we can probably get 20 to 25 homes done with $600,000, probably more.
Because obviously there's administrative expense that's baked into that 600,000.
There is. This is only a 15% cap of admin out of this program, which is less than the other. We're pretty light out of the admin for grants. As you can see, there's things that can happen if you rely on grants to pay for admin. It can be a liability, but also we like to throw all the money at projects for the residents. You know, it's a service we provide. So we're pretty light on administrative costs through all these grant programs.
So then, since this is a different program, will we be going back to the prior IDA list, or will there be a new application process?
Yeah, that's a great question. As far as I understand it, it's not a really big NOFO, a notice of opportunity. I believe that we have to go through a whole new application process for this program.
Once we're waiting on verification, Vice Mayor. Once we know, we'll make sure we share that with y'all.
I'm quite certain, just by their webinar. Yeah.
And when's the application due?
March 17th.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman York.
Yes.
Cooper.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Wilson. Wands. Bouchard.
Yes.
O'Kane. Iverson.
Yes.
Poor.
Yes.
Streebing.
Yes.
Pickering.
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes.
Teague.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
12 yes.
12 yes, thank you. Eric or Logan, anything else? No. Okay. That concludes our report, Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman Poor. At this time, we'll receive our Public Services Committee report. Chairman Streaming.
All right, we'll meet here next week, February 25th, Tuesday at 6 p.m. here at the Chambers. I don't have any more items of information. Does anybody have anything for my committee? And we'll move right into 12A1, traffic study discussion. Chief?
This is something that was brought up sometime in 2024, and there was a meeting over at Laura Lee on, I believe, October 7th of 2024, in which there's members of the community, members of this council, maybe some people sitting in the audience, met at Laura Lee and discussed some of the findings that were provided through the IDOT study. Just to give you a little bit of background, and what it indicated, the study indicated, was that if you were black, you were 5 times more likely to be pulled over in the city of Danville. Now, this study wasn't exclusive to Danville, it was statewide. And we started looking at it because we hadn't heard anything from it other than just the annual reports, and there was nothing that we saw that was out of place, and then this was brought to my attention. When this started, since about 2004, a company ran the study, and how the study works is information is sent by the departments. Every department in the state of Illinois that participates in it, there's some that may not, sends all their stuff to the state. The state then takes that study through their IDOT study. It's a pedestrian or traffic stop and pedestrian stop study, and sends it to whoever they have contract to do the analysis. Since about 2004, they used a company that used the same methodology every time that they did the study. That way we could compare, see check for accuracies, see if there's something like an internal audit. Well, are we doing something wrong? Is there, what does it mean? In about 2019, they switched from the previous analysis consultant and switched to another. I believe they're located in Seattle, Washington, or somewhere around the West Coast. And we started seeing different numbers. And one of the problems that we found was, well, what's the benchmark? It can't change the data provided because it's self-reported. We have a system set in since shortly after I became the chief to where it's worked into our systems where it's very difficult to clear a traffic stop without doing your profile sheet. And that way we can get the most accurate and there's less human error deficiencies. Well, in 2019, they used what they called the Countrywide American Community Survey, which samples 10% of the U.S. population, or 3.5 million surveys, and that's all 50 states, plus D.C. and Puerto Rico, I believe. The following year, they used a different methodology, which was the 2020 mixed county data. 21, 22, they used the distance or crash-based data. And then 2023, the study that we're talking about, 5 to 1, according to what I've read, is ACS. Again, American Community Survey. And what that's ran by the same people that do it's through the American Bureau, Census Bureau, U.S. Census Bureau. But these are estimates. Margin of error is much greater. They have to use different formulas. However, I was a little confused because I looked at it today and it gave us even a different number than what the study provided. So the constant is the data that we provide. That doesn't change. I've got pages of what show you what it looks like whenever it comes out raw. But then we looked at, well, where's these numbers coming from and where could be the errors? And, I sat down with Alderman Teague. We discussed it in depth and some other people. I can't remember all who all we discussed this. But one of the biggest problems is when you change different, whether it be benchmark or comparables, you get different results. For instance, according to the numbers thrown into the study, we have 35,999 people, which is simply just not true. That isn't as important as the demographics, okay? Through even the most recent ACS survey that was provided, because, once you get to 2023, 24, 25, now you're midway in between your 10-year survey, okay, which is actually official. The rest are approximates. But still, when you look at it, I can understand why they do ACS, but even in the most recent ACS that I looked at, it actually moved it down to 28,000, and one even said 27,000. But the biggest difference is that the demographic for the city of Danville they listed was 72% white, 20.5% black, in which the actual demographic is closer to 54.4% white, and 33.4% black, which changes things exponentially. Okay. Now, one of the things when I spoke with ACLU and Mr. Yonka and the group of about 60, 70 people that were there, long discussion, and when I brought these topics up, I looked at each one of them. I said, please stop me if at any time I say something that's just not true. But I brought up these different concerns, and I noticed a young lady that was one of them that was there said she kept referring to Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, in different places. Sorry, we can't compare that. Okay, I don't know anything about Chicago, their law enforcement, their study, or their data, how it's reported. How they train, the relationships. I don't know, but I do know Danville. I know it very well. For 30 years. I know it very well. And she says the purpose of this is to make sure that the police look at these studies and compare year to year. Well, that's not possible when you have three different methodologies used in a study over a period of 4 to 5 years, because it changes things. Okay, you're looking at data. It's like when we talk about UCR and NIBRS, I said it's really hard. We still report different UCR style reporting methods for some of the stuff we're trying to show increases, decreases, because if you throw NIBRS in it, you can't compare the two. So it gets very difficult. But she says, that's so, and the other one is concern for public perception, and we have to discuss that. In 5-1, you'd look at it and it's like, well, yeah, I'd like to know what causes it. But what we did was we took our data people and we put in the proper numbers of the demographics as well as the most official numbers that we have in the demographics, and it lowered it quite a bit. It brought it down to 2-1. Okay. Wasn't 5-1. And even if we use the other 5-1, we're still lower than other communities within this region. I looked at their numbers, and they should be probably saying, "Hey, what's going on here too?" That's their business. But what happened as a result of this is the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, which is comprised of about 1,400 police executives across the state, say this changes a benchmark from year to year in which there is no possibility for accurate finding from year-over-year comparisons, which was one of the designs of the original study and the purpose. This was pointed out by the Illinois ILACP and readily admitted by the company that took the data and provided the analysis. It also resulted in the request by the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police to Illinois Department of Transportation to post a disclaimer on their report as well as a summary statement of the concerns on the IDOT website, which they did. And that can be looked up. All this information is available to all of you by just looking up IDOT traffic study, and it can be provided. Now, you know, what are the potential explanations to 2-1? Well, they're theories. People can come up with whatever they want. But I think that the three things that you need in order for there to be a traffic stop is for there to be, you know, a vehicle in the roadway, a police officer patrolling the area, and then a violation observed by the police officer of a vehicle. That's what takes place, and that's what's required. We pull over violations. We also use data and intelligence-driven policing for our resource allocations. Now, if you look at the study also, and you want to, and concerns for disparity, you also had more than 5-1 as far as victimology and offense. But now we put our numbers back in there with the proper numbers, and it brings it back to about 2.25-1. We also see an increase in victimology, but not as much. It's like 1.5-1. So there are disparities, but the disparities are not as such. That was represented based off the way we understand the methodologies within their study. And it can be very confusing. But those are things that we have to think about. Now, I don't think there's anybody that's been around me or the police department over the last 5.5 years that don't take a look at the accountability and the transparency that we've exhibited. There's a standard that goes well beyond what is even acceptable or reasonable when in some areas, to where the standard, and I say it often, we have to maintain that high standard. If not, there is a loss of trust. And then our ability to fulfill our mission, which is improving the quality of life for every one of our citizens, doesn't come to fruition. And we move away from that mission. Now, I don't know what the agendas are for this. I don't know. I'm only responding, and a lot of this is based off another meeting that's going to be a part 2 of the first meeting. Priyanka's not coming to this one. They're going to have someone else come. They're very good to work with. They're very good to talk to. There was an understanding when I left. So I don't know. Now, if anybody wants to do a study, welcome to do it. Our data is available through a couple clicks and can be provided. However, the thought of us redoing or being responsible as a city or a police department to run a duplicate study in which Illinois Department of Transportation has spent millions on through the duration of this, I'll give you my data. I'll give anybody my data. It's FOIAble, it's available, and go from there. So another concern I had is when they were talking about, well, let's get the police perception of a traffic stop. And a lot of the commonalities was, you know, when you're doing traffic, the way cars are designed now, you don't really know who you're pulling over. Okay, you try to get an idea before the stop and you log a plate, but a lot of that stuff's building while you're conducting a traffic stop. But what was more concerning is when we have between 30 and 40,000 law enforcement officers in the state of Illinois. Based off the study I read today on this company that did it, 8 officers were interviewed for approximately 45 minutes from 7 different departments. And I don't find that as being a good sample. Now, I don't know if they went back and got more later on or what. I'm just saying what I read when I stumbled across some more studies earlier. But those are my concerns. We've worked really hard to build a relationship with all of the citizens within the city of Danville. And I think if you look at different things that are occurring, even though we have different challenges, you know, Mr. Butler, we've come a long way since Antioch Baptist Church. In the meeting we had after we, I don't know how many funerals and different things that we went to in 2018. But we came a long way. And that's through relationships. And it's difficult when we have disparity on that. Any questions?
Just one, and I sort of brought it up, and the reason being that Lloyd keeps doing these things, and you're well aware of it too, and I've talked to Lloyd about it. I work traffic court, and I don't see the disparity, and I've told Lloyd that. Mm-hmm. He's wanting to do some type of study. What type of study is he wanting to do? And
I have no idea. You know, and I refrain from using, you know, individuals because I have a responsibility to make sure and ensure, you know, that everybody's supported in what their endeavors are, because he is a citizen of Danville, and I'll support him. But like I said, whatever he's wanting, I don't know what the agenda is, but this is not a new thing.
No, and I'm not saying it is, and I guess what we're doing, we're here to represent citizens in this community, and Lloyd's brought up an idea. He's had 2 meetings where it's been well attended. One of them I went to was very well attended, and I think the one you went to was pretty well attended, and I think he's having another one coming up. I wish he was here, and he'll probably be here next week, but the thing is, somebody's right, somebody's wrong. If there's a study that say Lloyd's wrong, let's do it and get it over with. Just put this thing to bed. I don't like it being brought up all the time, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, and I understand
you
that.
don't either.
I understand that completely, but where does the burden fall?
Well, I don't know.
And
I don't know.
That's where that's my concern. Now we have, if you want the Danville Police Department to do it, let's do one.
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, I don't know.
But as far as we were just talking about $80,000 to tear down the building.
Mm-hmm.
Check what the consultants charge on something like that. And, so that's where we stand on it. But I think moving forward is, I think it's very objective to say, you have to be, in itself, who's right or wrong. It's pretty objective. We could all argue that, but I have to look at the numbers. I have to look at the numbers of what we got, and that's what the numbers show. And so at that point, I'm satisfied with where we're at. Unapologetic for the decrease in crime rate and the violence. We had an uptick with the different challenges, legislative challenges in 24 in property crime and non-detainable offenses. We'll be releasing our annual report in March. And that's disturbing. However, we've held our own in the violent crime with a slight, non-alarming increase.
Well, trust me, I wouldn't want your job. I admire your police department, and I see what you're dealing with every day of the week, and I wouldn't want to deal with them. I don't like dealing with them at my job the way it is. Just one more question, and can we do anything about Meyer?
Meyer, I'm sorry.
Making rights out of Meyer or making lefts out of that exit?
So we have been, several years ago, Sam and I proposed this question to both IDOT and to Meyer. IDOT said we will not force them to change it. Meyer said we will not willingly change it because it negatively impacts our ability to get trucks out of here. We recently revisited the issue with them. Eric has been following up diligently. Meyer still refuses to change anything. And so we've now, I believe, we are in the process of reaching back out to the state, because the state would not even allow, previously when we've had this discussion, having another light there. What I can tell you is Sam even drew a design of how we could fix it. We even offered to help them pay for a change so that you couldn't turn left out of there, so that we could stop all the accidents and stuff. Eric has updated the numbers of accidents that we've had there, and the problem has actually gotten worse. Yeah. So the problem is IDOT is choosing to prioritize their truck traffic over the lives of our citizens. And I've told them if they don't agree to a change, that I'm going to finally have to say that. And that's where we are right now. So we're at the point of revisiting this issue with IDOT. What I can tell you is Meyer is a wonderful store. I like all the wonderful things they provide for us, all the jobs and everything else. Very thankful for it. But if by one change we could save lives, it would seem that they would want to save customers, even if it was just from a profit standpoint, but also the negative attention that it gets all the time. But what I can tell you is that we've done our homework. We've done everything we could. We've even offered to partner with Payne to help resolve the problem, to no avail. So now we are back in the hands of IDOT. And hopefully we will hear a better news from them this time than we have in the past.
Well, I'm just glad it's being addressed. It's a lot of people are concerned about that. And
Alderman Cooper, I think if we were discussing it before, and this is like the first time that all parties are talking on that, who was it I was talking to? At least considering it. So we're further than where we were before. But again, that whole corridor is controlled by nothing happens without Illinois Department of Transportation.
Could we put cement barriers there in the middle?
Well, what we propose would not cost $100,000 to make a change, and it would make things inordinately safer, but we don't have the lawful authority to do so.
Okay, well, that was just a concern.
Yes. Vice Mayor Teague.
A few questions that I had. First, my understanding of everything you were saying is basically that the data has not changed, but the way in which it's being analyzed has changed, and there were percentage differences that were given. Then, of course, that obviously changed the results of the analysis because, as percentages go up or down, that obviously changed the outcomes. My question on that is, were the sources of those percentages provided?
We do not provide the demographics and all that. That's to them.
Right, but I'm saying when usually, like when I go on Wikipedia,
It came from the ASC.
Well,
She's
there's
asking where did the
differences.
demographic data
there's-
that they use come from.
but
right,
there's
Vice Mayor?
differences. But there's differences. So they couldn't have come from the same source, right? So if I go on Wikipedia and I look up Danville, Illinois, and it'll tell me what the percentages are, and then it has a footnote, and the footnote will tell me the source. So you obviously have different percentages that have come from two different sources. My question is, what are those sources? Not that you have them, but that what you looked at that they're using. I'm asking, did they cite their source for those
So
percentages?
it was supposed to be the American Community Survey.
Both times with the different numbers?
Well, one was in 2019 was ACS, 2020 was mixed county data, 21 and 22 was distance or crash-based data, and then 23 was reportedly, based off what I understood, was a ACS again.
Because you said that the percentages of the demographics at one point was like 50% white, 20% black, something else, and then another was 70% white. And
Well, I don't know what the demographics were on the 2019. The demographics they show that's in the study that's on the release of the data was 72% white, 20.5% black. Essentially, they gave us another close to 7,000 or 8,000 more residents, and 10,024 more white, and then they reduced our black population by 2,395.
And so my question is, did they cite their source for those numbers?
ACS.
ACS. So the 70% was from ACS, and then the number where the white was lower was also from ACS?
That was from the
that's
census
what we-
data.
That's what we drew from the census.
Gotcha. Okay.
10-year census. But what I don't understand, and I caught this earlier, is either today or yesterday, was that if you look at it, I couldn't even find a figure anywhere that it gave us those numbers.
Okay.
That they reported in the study. I don't even know where I don't know where they came from.
So they didn't cite the source.
They may have. I just
You didn't see a citation of a source.
other than what the ILACP report came out of their concerns was the margin of error. And I think even if you go to the U.S. Census Bureau website, which does ACS, it'll tell you specifically in so many words, do not use ACS if you want specific results and data, because it's an estimate only with a larger margin of error.
Okay.
So,
And the reason why I'm asking that question is just because, as you know, which is why we had the conversation, I have a background in analyzing data. So I know how those numbers can change and fluctuate things. If you have bad input coming in, you're going to have bad output. But being able to verify the source of the data, not our actual stops, right? Because that hadn't changed. It's all of the other, right. All of the other pieces are what's making the fluctuations occur. But if you can't verify the source, whether it's right or wrong, you don't know, because we don't know what the source is. So I was just trying to get an understanding of where the source was.
Yeah.
And I don't think we had that particular conversation previously. I think we talked about the data and we looked at numbers and stuff, but not necessarily the source of those percentages. I have two other questions. One is, are you planning to attend the next meeting? Because I know you were at the last one.
Thursday, no.
Okay.
No, I got family plans. No one asked me to attend.
Okay. And I know you were asked to attend the last one. And I also want to say, which I said at the meeting, but I haven't said here, was I applauded your efforts at that meeting, which I obviously, you were there, you heard me say it, but everybody else wasn't. I applauded your efforts at that meeting and the way in which you directly addressed every question that was posed, and even stayed longer than your original intended leave time to be able to address those things. So to me, it was a great representation of the city of Danville. And I know you don't personally like applause or whatever, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. My last question is, you talked about benchmarks. And I know one of the things you brought up was comparing our benchmarks to other communities. My question as our chief is, what do you think an appropriate benchmark is for our community? Do you have a number or a benchmark in mind that you strive to get to for our community?
Yeah, I think you have to set, like whenever I said you have to have a police officer, a vehicle and a violation. Well, our benchmarks are set where if you're going to have more police officers based off the data and intelligence of resource allocation, meaning manpower in different areas of higher crime, you're going to have more police officers to see that. So you may have, our biggest focus should be, how do we reduce crime? Because then, you would think, wouldn't it be nice if we had officers that were actually trying to figure out what they were going to do with their day, rather than going from call to call to call to call on some shifts. Now, we've seen a reduction, but we've also seen an increase of what we've called calls for service, which includes self-initiated field activity. And that's a proactive work that we do with our special units as well as our regular patrol officers, to where there's more contacts. Many of those contacts are enforcement contacts, which are the ones that we want to have. Those are just our community contacts, citizen, checking on them for some reason. There's a lot of traffic stops that people literally will get out and say, hey, you got a tail light out. They're like, oh no, here's my information. They have to take their information because it's protocol, because you don't want to be accused of something else. And they're like, they have no intentions of doing anything other than letting them know, hey, I know you can't see your tail light or your brake light when you're driving. Here's them, here you go. And we saw that on the video from the complaints that originated in January of 23 on those, when you get accused of something in city council, you have to often defend yourself in city council. So those are the things that we're looking at, is when you make a contact with the public, it doesn't always have to be like a enforcement type contact. It can be a non-enforcement type contact. Communication. When I worked my beats as a patrol officer, I knew everybody in the area. Well, it wasn't because of anything other than just contact. I knew which car was supposed to be there. I knew who hung out at different areas. I knew if someone was in trouble, I knew where I could go. If I knew someone was causing trouble, I knew where to go. And that's what we encourage. It's one of the concepts and one of the coordinates or components of community policing, which we push very strongly. However, there are times where you could take data out of context and try to make it illustrate something that's wrong. To say that every action we take is perfect and it can't be misconstrued or taken the wrong way would be foolish for me to say. But I'd say the relationships that we have within the community are paying its dividends, and we understand the importance of community policing and trust, that mutual trust, not just trust to the police, but also the trust from the police to the community. Also the trust and faith in our justice system that we have, though imperfect, the only one we got right now. So there's a lot of work to be done. I've never told you guys that I'm satisfied with where we're at as a department or as a city and our community. But we're a heck of a lot farther than where we were 5 years ago when we were having those meetings at the different churches, trying to understand how we can protect our sons and daughters in the community.
And the last thing that I want to say is just a statement, not a question, which is I agree with Alderman Cooper in that I believe that I don't want to say study, because the data is the data. The data hasn't, we're not asking for a new collection of data. But I believe that a study should happen just so that this matter can be resolved one way or another, because it's going to continue to be discussed and brought up. And whatever the outcome of that is what it is. Do I think the taxpayer should pay for it? Well, if we were debating having to have enough money to pay for police cars and mowing lawns in December, I don't see how we should be the ones paying for it. I also believe, and I think you didn't say this outright, Chief, but I think this was the point that you were making, which was it shouldn't come from the police department, because if it came from the police department, everybody would argue and say that, well, of course the police department is going to find this way. I think it should come from an independent third party, but who pays for it? I don't know who that is. If there's some grant somebody has somewhere to pay for it, that would be great, because then it would be an independent third party. But not seeing any, I don't know where the source of the funds should come from, but I do not think that the source of the funds should come from the citizens of Danville's tax dollars. But I do agree that there should be an analysis of the data from an independent third party, so that we don't have to keep having this conversation, because this conversation has gone on for at least, a year or two.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah,
I think the only reason we keep having this conversation is because people are unwilling to accept accurate data. The data is there. You don't need to. The truth is, if Mr. Randall really wanted to understand the data, he could take the data himself and come to better conclusions than the false data that continues to be purported to the media.
I can't speak to Mr. Randall's intent or not, but when you have data that the chief has already said, well, in this instance is pulling from this number, and that instance is pulling from this other number and whatnot, that is where questions come from. If you're not a data analyst or a data scientist, I almost went and got a master's degree in data science, so I chose not to. But if you're not a data scientist, you don't understand the ins and outs and the digging in of data. Chief looks at data on a regular basis because it's part of his job. I used to look at data every single day because it was part of my job. If a person does not actually do that, they might not necessarily understand where these differences come from. And so what happens is when you have, in this instance is 50%, in this instance is 70%, in this instance is 80%, all being applied to the same piece of data, it introduces doubt. Whether or not that doubt is valid or not, it's still a doubt in a person's mind. And the only way to make sure that that doubt is completely addressed is to actually look at and analyze the data again from an independent third party. Now, I don't know what Mr. Randall's background is. I don't believe that he has a background in data analytics. So I would not expect for him to go and analyze the data himself. What I would expect for is that he would defer to some expert, which is I think what his intention is, to have an expert come and say that, this is what the data shows us, and then be satisfied with that. And I believe in listening to, and I've had extensive conversations with Mr. Randall and also other people that Mr. Randall have asked to call me. I believe that what both Chief and Mr. Randall and all of us want is the same thing, which is the data is looked at independently. We trust the data that came in, therefore we can trust the data that comes out. But if you got 3 different statistical scenarios going in, of course you're going to have doubts about the data. And because the chief has already said we don't know the source of the percentages that they provided, I believe that probably what would happen is if whomever provided the analysis that of a third-party study went and used the census data, the same census data that Chief has already looked at, they would end up coming to the same conclusions because we know the source of those percentages, which is why I asked about the source. Because if you know the source, then you can go back and look at where they pulled their numbers from. But because we don't know the source of where ACS got their percentages from, we know the source where Chief got his percentages from. He got it from the Census Bureau. We know the Census Bureau does a very good job of pulling data. We don't know where ACS data came from. So there's doubt because of all of that. If you just look at it objectively, they're wanting the same thing. At least that's what I've heard in my conversations, because I've been open-minded about it. I don't have an issue with the police department. I don't have an issue with Mr. Randall. I've heard all of the arguments and conversations about it. At the end of the day, people just want to know the same, want to know that what we have as output is accurate. And I believe that there's doubt that has been introduced, which is why this keeps coming up.
Yeah, I just want to make it very clear. It's not an adversarial topic.
Agreed.
Okay? It's with me nor any individual member. My biggest concern is let's have this discussion on how we can improve quality of life through crime prevention and people feeling safe. And that's what everybody wants.
And I think that the conversations as it relates to data, the word that comes to mind, I was trying to find a better one, but I can't, distracts from that goal.
My concern is the question, what next?
I don't have an answer for that, but I would be satisfied with we've had a study that gives us some outputs that we all can agree to are accurate, and then move on after that.
Alderman?
Yes, my only question is about the data. I'm sure that the Yates and his group has the data. I mean, how can they pull the data from Danville if we don't have it ourselves?
We provide.
You're right. I'm sure that you provide the data, right?
We provide the number, the stops, the reasons, and the frequency, and the information on the stops. But that information raw means nothing unless you compare it to population demographics and whatever you're wanting to compare or find.
And the population and demographics, if the population and demographics are different, then your numbers coming out are going to be different.
We're talking about a different city now.
Right. So if you took, let's say it says we have 100,000 people versus we have 20,000 people. So if you do the math, right, 100,000 divided by 2 and 20,000 divided by 2 gonna give you different numbers.
Exactly.
And so therein lies the issue. What is the actual number that you start with?
Right.
And what Yates is saying is that one thing said we had 37,000 people. Another thing said we had 29,000 people. One thing said we had this percentage of blacks versus white versus whatever other demographics we have in our city. And another thing said we had another percentage. Well, once you factor in total population, then percentages of total population and all of those things, and then you start doing the math, well, those numbers are going to come out different. 100 divided by whatever is not the same thing as 20 divided by whatever.
Yeah, you're right. That is the whole issue.
Exactly.
Right. And so instead of doing a data or percentages, just go by numbers.
Well, we don't. Well, the problem is
we stopped 50 blacks, and so we stopped 25 whites, and then we stopped 15 Haitians. I mean, yes, it's going to always be confusion. We can get an outside entity to come in, you're going to get the same results.
The problem is that the information that's on IDOT is inaccurate about how many people live in Danville.
Correct.
So if it's saying that we stop blacks 5-1, and then another calculation is we stop blacks 2-1, which one is right? That's the problem.
Right.
That's the problem. So until you have a third party come in and say, oh, this number is right, then you're going to continue to have this conversation.
I think that concludes our report.
Thank you, Chairman Streaming. I appreciate that. Are there any items of information for the good of the cause? Seeing none, we do not have need for closed session. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Be safe out there.
Did you say you opposed?